With Street Fighter V's DLC being complete and a potential 6th installment around the corner, fans have been comparing Street Fighter V with the installment that came before it. Oh wait, haha, I never had to worry! Anyway, Street Fighter fans have been comparing Street Fighter V to Street Fighter 4 to see if Street Fighter V is finally on par with SF4 in terms of quality. However, that topic is for another day. Today I want to focus primarily on Street Fighter 4. Everyone remembers Street Fighter 4, it was the fighting game that revitalized the entire genre as we know it back in 2008. When people think of Street Fighter 4, they often remember Street Fighter 4, Super Street Fighter 4, Super Street Fighter 4 Arcade Edition, and Ultra Street Fighter 4. Although there is one version of the game that is often forgotten by the community. Super Street Fighter 4 3D Edition for the Nintendo 3DS. Being a launch title for the system, it's safe to say this version of the game suffered from the 3DS stigma in 2011, when the system was a wonkin' $250 at launch with not super compelling launch titles to go with it or even to come until Mario 3D Land and Mario Kart 7 came out. But was this game only forgotten due to the timing of its release? Is it worth playing today in 2022? Or is it actually a low quality port that nobody should play? Well, let's dive into Super Street Fighter 4 3D Edition and find out. Oh yeah, before we continue, as you may be able to tell, I do not own a capture card for the new Nintendo 3DS XL. So hopefully this perspective doesn't bother you too much. Heck, you may even be able to benefit from it. Anyway, when booting the game up, we see the same opening cutscene found in the console versions. When heading to the menu, you can see that the interface is nearly identical to the other versions, minus the features that are exclusive to this version that we'll talk about in a little bit. When going through the game's interface, you can see just how close it is to the other versions. Usually handheld ports of these games would have downgraded interfaces for it not being as powerful, but Super Street Fighter 4 3D's menu interface looks just like the console editions. When going into the arcade mode, you also have the exact same setting privileges as normally. Alright, this may come off as a shocker, but 3D Edition has all 35 fighters from the 360 and PlayStation 3 versions of Super Street Fighter 4, with all of them including various costumes and colors. Each character also has 2 Ultra combos to choose from, which is very impressive for the system. When going into the arcade mode, we can see the prologue of each character's storyline, with the cutscene playing on the top screen and subtitles shown on the bottom screen. From here we go into our chain of matches. Surprisingly, the game plays quite well and has a nice feeling to it. It runs pretty smoothly, and while you may notice a couple of bumps in frame rate, especially with Ultra combos, it will by no means ruin your experience whatsoever. There is one interesting and slight problem with playing on the 3DS. Due to requiring 6 buttons, you would need to use the shoulder buttons on the 3DS, which for some is not very comfortable. To eliminate this issue, you have the option to enable 4 buttons on the touchscreen to map it as a special move, combo, EX special move, normal, or throw. This adds necessary accessibility to newcomers and even seasoned players. I personally rarely use this feature since I'm already so accustomed to the gameplay on this version, but that's just me. It's a great feature for this version of the game. One thing I like to mention, when I play the game, I play with this specific grip stand. It makes playing the game normally more comfortable and you can find it for pretty cheap online. While playing the game, all the characters move and look pretty good. However, the backgrounds for each stage is completely still. No background motion is presented whatsoever in these stages. However, it's a minor complaint at best given how well the game plays, but it's still unfortunate. Another effect this title has, given its launch window, is having 3D built in to showcase the Nintendo 3DS's stereoscopic capabilities. And while it didn't add much to this 2D tournament fighter, it looks good, especially on the new Nintendo 3DS XL. This does seem to make the frame rate drop a bit, but it runs pretty well still. Definitely more noticeable, but nothing choppy or anything that will hinder your experience or frame data. On top of this, Capcom added a new dynamic viewing option to fights called 3D Versus. You can play solo computer matches or even go through the entirety of arcade mode with this enabled. It's a pretty cool feature exclusive to this version, but I keep my game in the normal 2D perspective as in my opinion, it looks more impressive and feels fun to play it this way on the system. The audio also sounds pretty decent, with not a whole lot of compression coming from the system. One feature that is absent from this version is the lack of enabling Japanese voice clips for the characters. You can change the game itself to be in a couple of different languages, but the voice clips remain the same. I know I sound like such a weeb right now, but I really like the Japanese voices for some of these characters. For some of them, it just makes them sound more powerful and badass, and I really like that. Another form of content that is absent is in the form of 2 music tracks, being the Ryu vs Akuma and Ryu vs Goken tracks. These tracks would play when you play as Goken or Akuma in the arcade mode and get to their rival fights, both being Ryu. However, for the 3DS version, Akuma and Goken's own personal themes would play instead.
You haven't transcended your humanity. You haven't transcended your humanity. You've thrown it away. Prepare to meet your maker.
These music tracks are amazing, and it is unfortunate to see them MIA here in the 3DS edition. Again though, these complaints are non-existent and barely have any effect on the game itself. Super Street Fighter 4 3D Edition also includes online play. You can play in either regular or 3D versions. And within each mode you have the option to find a quick match with a random player, set up a custom match, or play it with a friend on your 3DS friend list. Much like the console versions, you have the option to include banners with messages upon your online persona. I personally don't do this myself though, as even when I first got the game in 2017, I hadn't played it online that much at all. You'd think the matches today would be god-awful, but to mine and many other surprises, it actually runs surprisingly okay. Not great, but for a casual player like myself, I've been through. Lastly, let's talk about the remaining features and modes exclusive to 3D Edition. The most notable being the ability to collect digital in-game figurines of the characters and battling in groups of 5 via Street Pass. You'll also earn figure points that can be used to buy these character statues as you play the game. You can also use the 3DS's pedometer-based play coins to buy them as well. From here you can assemble a team, and when 2 3DS systems are in sleep mode, the 2 teams assembled will fight to victory over Street Pass. You can level your figures up to get stronger as you go along too. I myself have only ever used this feature twice, counting for the sake of this review. Not because this is a bad idea, it just wasn't executed properly and there's not really an incentive to level up your figures and battle other figures. I think this mode would be great to bring back for a potential Switch port of Street Fighter 4, or just whenever the next Street Fighter game comes out on Switch they maybe add it as a side mode with amiibo support. I would kill for more Street Fighter amiibo. But as it stands now, this is a cool idea, but you're much better off just playing the main game, at least in my opinion. All in all, Super Street Fighter 4 3D Edition is a wonderfully crafted port of one of the greatest Street Fighter games ever released. With this being a launch title for the 3DS, it does an amazing job of showing the system's capabilities and was definitely one of, if not the best launch title for the 3DS. It's not a perfect port and it does have some niche exclusive content, but it is probably the best handheld Street Fighter port out there. Currently this title hovers around the $15 to $20 mark in the secondhand market, which that itself is worth it, but oftentimes the game can be found on sale in the eShop for a mere $4.99, to which that is a steal. So if you want to play this game for a super cheap price, better buy it before the eShop goes by. The question still stands though, would it be worth it today in 2022? Well, that depends. If you still actively play the 3DS and are looking for another great game to add to your collection, and perhaps maybe a Street Fighter fan like myself, you 100% should buy it. If you are mainly looking for the best way to play Street Fighter 4 and not so much the novelty of it being Street Fighter 4 on the go, I advise you to stick to / just purchase Ultra Street Fighter 4 on PlayStation or Xbox. Personally, as a big Street Fighter fan, I think it's worth it just for the novelty, and I think any Street Fighter fan should pick it up for the novelty, but I understand that different people are into different things, some people don't really care about the novelty, so it's really about your personal preference. Overall though, I gave this game a well-deserved 8 out of 10. Definitely a recommended purchase for any Street Fighter fan, and if you're a 3DS collector. Thanks for watching everyone, sorry I haven't posted in a really long time, life has just been getting in the way. But you know, hopefully I'll do this again soon. Anyway guys, thanks for watching once again, we are out y'all, peace.